Hi, this is nurse practitioner and attorney Joe Flores. I know what it's like to be a minority in the workplace as a male in healthcare, as a Latino in healthcare, but also we have to remember about the people out there that may be sexually harassed. If you feel that you have been sexually harassed in the workplace, call me, 361-887-8670, the law firm of Joe Flores.
Welcome to South Texas Now, featuring attorney Joe A. Flores from the Flores Law Firm. He grew up right here in the Coastal Bend and became a physician's assistant, fell in love with the law, and became a lawyer. Each broadcast of South Texas Now brings you unique interviews with some of the voices that make a difference right here in South Texas. Now please enjoy this episode of South Texas Now.
And welcome to another edition of South Texas Now. This is attorney Joe Flores reminding you to join us each and every week. I want to thank everybody out there for their great support, watching our YouTube channel, South Texas Now, and also sharing our show also on Facebook media. Not only do you put it on Facebook, I've seen it on Instagram, some of it. I've also seen it on LinkedIn, you professionals out there that also put that on there. So thank you. The other thing I want to thank is Vasquez Flores Home Health, our sponsor. 361-881-9922. Want an exciting job? Give them a call. And also you'll be able to help your loved ones or your neighbors. So give them a call, 881-9922. With all that said, I am honored to present. Now, you've seen him before, and you've seen him with district attorneys, county attorneys, but we have him all to ourselves today. Our guest, Nuestro Huésped, he's going to be here talking about law enforcement and whatever he wants. He's the sheriff of Jim Wells County, my hometown. Danny Bueno, how are you?
Thank you, Mr. Flores. It's a pleasure to be here with you today and again. Yes.
I'm very excited to have you because not a lot of people know how law enforcement happens in the rural areas. They watch No Country for Old Men and they think all the sheriffs are on horseback and they talk like Tommy Lee Jones, you know, but and I'm sure some of them do when you go up to Comanche County and all that. But also, you're a speaker. You're a sheriff among sheriffs. Last time we interviewed you with my daughter, you got a congressional record. You were acknowledged for the heck of a job you're doing and to help stop drugs, stop the tide, human trafficking, helping ranchers. I mean, so it is an honor to have you on. So all those out there who don't know, Jim Wells County is our neighbor to the left, and it is stopping the flow of everything from drugs to guns to human trafficking, but it also takes care of the ranchers out there. And that's a great program of yours. So welcome again.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Flores. It's always a pleasure to be here at your office. And again, thank you for supporting law enforcement the way you do. It means a lot to us.
Thank you.
One of the things that we're very pleased is that we have a very good relationship with the surrounding sheriffs around Jim Wells County, from Hidalgo to Clayburgh to Nueces and Webb County, as well as George West. And that's what is key for law enforcement to be able to accomplish and also share intelligence to help each other in the apprehension of individuals that might be committing crimes in certain areas of the region.
Yeah, I get surprising things that come through my door because I represent federal cases. I may represent people. I selectively do it. I used to be on their CJA panel, you know, the justice panel. And some of the guys I didn't like representing, but I did my job. And I try to do it my very best. I wouldn't have them over for coffee, but I did my best. But now we're getting people in that are senior citizens, bringing people in their cars, senior citizens going down to Progreso or wherever, don't want to be too picky about Progreso, but border towns. And then they're coming back with Xanax. They're coming back with all these drugs, and they go through the border, and many of them get through with it, and then they bring it back. And, you know, I've heard of tales that are documented of elderly people bringing it for drug dealers and pills.
Yes, definitely. That is a big concern to law enforcement because it is occurring the people that you less expected for them to be doing this type of trafficking is occurring, and it's really changed the way we have to look at law enforcement, other than what it used to be before with the young individuals doing it. Now you've got senior citizens doing it. For whatever reason, fact of the matter is that they don't think they're going to be identified, or they're going to be suspicious about doing this type of trafficking in the border towns and coming into the United States.
Got a call the other day, real life examples. They were so angry with the county, and so angry they said, "I'm going to sue the sheriff." And I said, "What county?" Jim Wells. I said, "Okay, let me get on." Well, he was having a large amount of money. We're talking in the thousands, tens of thousands in the car. And I said, he goes, "What law is there for me to have, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 in my car? It's America." And how would you respond to that on the war on drugs?
Well, it just depends on the circumstances. Of course, you have specialists work in the interdiction program that identify the areas where you have a large amount of currency that you know for a fact. And a lot of times when these people get pulled over, say, "I didn't know it was there." A lot of people say, "It's not mine. I'm just traveling. I'm just taking the vehicle to a certain location." And it happens to be people that are laundering money coming through our communities. And the fact is that nobody wants to take responsibility for it. So therefore, they're arrested, and later on, they turn it over to the law enforcement agencies because they have no way of proving who it belongs to. And they deny that it belongs to them. And they will not give information who it belongs to.
I can't even take money. Somebody comes to me that has $10,000, or even if they want to do it in a series of transactions, I tell them, "Compadre, you need to go down to the bank. You need to, and then I have them swear and attest that this is gainfully employed, notarized, everything, because, and anything over 10, forget it. But even with 10, you still have to report it to the IRS and do your duty to let people know they're bringing in cash. Whereas, let's go back a generation ago, they'd bring sacks of money and everything, and it was on the up and up before they really started enforcing it. Yeah. Some of the legends that I know of from San Diego, from Alice, everybody, they in fact, it was custom to take that sort of money, and it wasn't anything wrong with it. Like Nago Alanis and all these big shot attorneys in Duval County, they would be paid in money. But that is a temptation, I believe. Once you start seeing that money, it's tough. So you do. A lot of people think you just on the big bus seize drugs and guns, but you also seize money.
Yes, exactly. And again, they'll have over $10,000. In some cases, we'll have an individual carrying $60,000, $70,000 in cash.
Wow.
Yes, 80,000 up to 100,000, and they have no idea who it belongs to. They have no idea where it's going to. All they have to do is just park a vehicle at a certain establishment in a certain community, and that is their pay. That is their what you call la mulas.
Clint Eastwood, The Mule, that movie. Yeah, yes. I mean he was the best. Yes. Because who suspected him? Mm-hmm. Never got a ticket. He was driving down the road in a camioneta, and then he goes and buys a brand new truck. Everything starts getting corrupt.
Yes.
You start making those mistakes and get out of the pattern, and that's what law enforcement is, right? Seeing those patterns.
Well, that's where you send your officers to be trained in the schooling that they have in order to identify some of these areas where not a regular police officer can do that. Your traffic patrol, your investigators, and so on, they're assigned to different divisions. The interdiction officers are trained to identify and see what kind of pattern, what kind of movements, what is happening with this individual that is traveling by himself or with family, or where is he coming from, how many times has he crossed the border, how many times has he come through through this area, and those kind of information, that kind of information is put together where the investigators look at.
Now all that data is monitored because you work together, and I don't want to give away the secret sauce or the Coca-Cola formula, but you guys work together. So if there's a suspicious individual, they're gonna. I remember once I was busy and I was doing my law rounds, and they go, "Where are you going?" Jim Wells County. Get out of the car, because they said lawyer, Valley, going to Jim Wells County. I think they were expecting, or there was some stuff going on where they used the lawyer as an intermediary to bring large amounts of cash and stuff. Lawyers can go to the dark side too. It's not just, Better Call Saul on the movies. It's the real thing where the lawyers can go corrupt and take large amounts of money. So I think that they don't leave any stone unturned. But by the time they get up to you, thankfully, there are times when you get a tip-off, right?
Well, this is where the intelligence comes in with the relationship that you have with different law enforcement agencies and different administrators to share that kind of information. Where's this vehicle going? Has it come through your community? And we share that information in order for us to be able to identify and investigate those cases.
We have 3 minutes left, but I want to humanize this. You've been around. I remember when I was a young boy, you were a detective. You were with the Alice Police Department.
The police department, yes.
What was your...
I started as a patrolman and became a sergeant, and then became involved in administration.
Oh, okay, okay.
In municipal court and different areas of the police department.
But eventually... Chief of Police?
Became the police chief. I was the longest police chief of the city of Alice.
Yes,
for 12 and a half years.
Yes. So when you put that, now before we dive into politics and we dive into the community problems in the rural area, what was it like, and what can you take away from your experience there and apply it to what you've been doing all your life, is defending people and enforcing the law? The best tool that you have is having a good communication with your government, your city government, county government, having good communications with your personnel, identifying the weak areas and show some improvement, and place individuals who are having problems at the start of patrol and traffic division or whatever the case may be, new officers, and put them on a growth plan to make sure that you develop the best officer that can serve your law enforcement agency. And this is what you want. And you monitor that. There's got to be evaluations. And then you have to have a good communication, a relationship with the community, the citizens of that community. Whether they're victims, whether they're parents of suspects or persons of interest, you treat these people with respect and honor. And listen to them. The best thing that law enforcement can be in our communities, in our country, is be a good listener. Because we don't know what they have, what they're coming with, what baggage they have, what is happening in their own lives, whether it's medical, a person they lost in their lives, something that is happening between husband and wife. We have to be prepared. We have to understand them. And that's what makes key to having a good law enforcement agency, is understanding people. This is what it's all about. We're there to understand people, to work with them and listen to them and give them what they need. Whether it's good, whether it's bad, this is what it takes. It takes a good relationship in order to be recognized. And when you have a good relationship with your law enforcement in your community, you're going to have a good agency that's going to be responsive to the needs of that community. Well, we're on fire today. Sheriff Danny Bueno from Jim Wells County. And also, they do run for office, and they do have to campaign despite all their duties after hours. So is there a good website or Facebook people can visit and learn more about you?
We have a Facebook with the Jim Wells County Sheriff's Office.
Excellent.
And that you will find out what our agency is doing what we've been accomplishing and what we're continuing to do for the services of our community.
Sheriff Danny Bueno wants to be your sheriff as long as Oscar Lopez down there, hopefully, and with a long and fruitful life. When we come back, we're going to be focusing in on drugs going north and money and arms going south, and the reality of all this, the wall, and then we're going to bring it back home and the programs that he's instituted for ranchers when we come back. Hi, this is attorney and nurse practitioner Joe Flores. There are many forms of bullying, and one of them I want to focus in on is cyberbullying. It is now a crime for someone to get up on the internet, and whether you're a professional and have worked hard and someone is making false statements about your business, or whether you're a teenager contemplating suicide or harm to yourself because of bullying, call us 361-887-8670. We'll do something about it. And we're back after a brief break. You're watching South Texas Now. We have on, and without delaying it, Sheriff Danny Bueno, Jim Wells County, our next door neighbor here in Nueces County. And you better believe that you can sleep better at night, not just because of our wonderful sheriff, but because of him. Welcome. Welcome
Thank
again.
you very much, Mr. Flores. I appreciate it.
Well, you said something that really moved, I think, our viewers a few minutes ago, and that was, it was like a community policing of the rural area, that you humanize the families and you try to holistically look at what's going on. You know, people just don't do bad things or make mistakes for no reason.
You know, again, the fact should be always through law enforcement is to have a follow-up of your victims, follow-up of your investigations. You just don't do an investigation and close it and say, well, there's no findings. Keep digging. Keep finding out. But then call them back and say, okay, now at this point, we couldn't find anything. We've used everything, our resources, everything we have. This is where we're at. Is there anything else you want to add to it? Then you close the case. Then you're satisfied. But then you go back again a month later, 2 months later, say, did you find anything else on your case? Did you find any other information? No, we haven't. We're just going to let it go. Okay, fine. Then you close that case. But you have to have that continuous communication with the victims.
When you have ranchers, and we have people like my mother that live out in the country, they often feel, especially when they're getting old, or growing older, they say, I feel alone out here, and we used to love, but what if something happens to me, and we're really way out here? What are the preventative measures you do to try to reach out to that community to make them feel safer?
We have sectors and sections of our community in Jim Wells County, and the officers in the patrol and traffic are assigned to different sectors from different ranches, from all the way to Fremont, La Gloria, all the way up to La Parrita and Orange Grove and Sandia. And they report to communications to let them know everything is okay at this area. So there's documentation. Now, if you come back and say, I called last night and the officers never drove by here, the officers never came by here. We have a system on our phones and our vehicles where we can show you we went by there 5 times, at this time, at this time, and at this time. This is a relationship that we've developed with the community. I can tell you that I can go into the system and say, I went to your ranch 15 times in 1 month. I went to Sandia 12 and a half hours in 5 or 6 days. This is the documentation that we have. So the community feels better knowing that we have officers in those areas. You have to have that communication with them and tell them, okay, we have that available to you. And we can identify if you feel, you're alone, you're abandoned, you live out there, way out there in a ranch and nobody goes by there. We have documentation where we go by there and check your properties. For many years, law enforcement looked at many cases from drug abuse to sexual abuse, child abuse, burglaries, thefts, criminal mischiefs, and it goes on and on and on. But a lot of times ranchers and farmers did not want to report because, well, they're not going to find my disc, they're not going to find my tractor, they're not going to find... Well, now we have a program in place that will identify that property. We have a program in place that identifies your land through a number that is assigned to you through a placard that goes on your fence, not only on your gate, but all around your property, whether it's 5 acres, 10 acres, or 200 acres. We will give you the plaques that are about this size, with the information, with a number that is assigned to you. And when the officers, whether it's Highway Patrol, Border Patrol, DPS, whether it's Fire Department, whether it's Game Warden, they run a number on that gate because there's a busted fence, or there's a tractor that's being pulled out at night, or there's something going on, or your cattle are out, or your horses are out. They call that number, and it comes back to Joe Flores, rancher, owner of Brahma cows, owner of John Deere tractors, and so on. There's an identifying number that gives you the information, gives us, all law enforcement officers, the opportunity to call you, Mr. Flores, your cows are out. Mr. Flores, do you have a tractor being moved out at 1 o'clock in the morning? Or is a tractor of yours parked on the side of the road? Those identifying number gives us an idea of who the property belongs to, because you have a lot of ranchers that are what you call absentee ranchers. They come down on weekends. They travel from San Antonio, from Houston. Now we have an idea who the ranch belongs to, the property belongs to, what kind of cattle they have, who should be there, who shouldn't be there. Why is the fence down? Why is the gate open? How do we know who that property belongs to? That number that is assigned to you will give us the owner and the foreman or the supervisor of the ranch, and we can identify with him right away.
Well, that gives us some comfort because, growing up in the summers in a ranch, and my dad was a rancher for a long time, I thought, and I grew up with the Texas mentality, you're on your own. By the time the sheriffs come and everything, that's why we packed heat. That's why we had our own firearms. We had everything from rattlesnakes to the other kinds of snakes, and I saw it myself, people going through the land that were, and it used to be they'd come and just work and leave. They'd come and work and leave the season. Mm-hmm. I worked alongside with them, picking melons and doing pacas, bales of hay, doing all these kinds of things. And my dad had me work summers. And then they'd go home. And then I found out when I became a lawyer in the federal system, they don't go home. And sometimes they occupy a ranch on some of those guys that live in San Antonio and Houston and stuff, and they use it as a passageway. What is going on with human trafficking in your area?
That is something that occurs every day. It's something that happens all over the country. It's around us. The fact of the matter that you have to be very careful to identify it, because they stay very silent. They're not protected, but they're so scared to come forward. And it's around us, like I said. And if we don't identify it by seeing the different patterns of their behavior, if we don't understand it, it can be happening right before our eyes, and we don't even know it. So it is important to always identify why is this person acting like that? Why? There's different areas that you train and you educate yourself to identify males and females if they are victims, if they are silent victims, to identify them if they're being trafficked.
Well, and that's the thing, that drugs and guns are being surpassed by human trafficking. Ladies and gentlemen out there, when you send your sons and daughters abroad, be careful. Travel in groups. Young women can be abducted from America as well as Albania and Mexico and everywhere else.
There's been cases where these individuals will handle trafficking situations and control these women, and they get sick, and they go to the local stores and get in medication and tell them and lie to them and say, I got you medication because I have a good contact with a doctor, and it's actually drugs over the counter, and now you're hooked to that individual for the next 4 or 5 weeks or 6 weeks or 10 months because he brought you medication. This is the way they use their mentality to control these individuals. And they're weak. They're very weak. They're so scared. They don't come forward. That's how come I call them the silent victims.
They're human slaves.
Yeah, they're human slaves. And they can be very hard to identify, but it's happening. It's happening, and if we as individuals don't identify neighbors, restaurant owners, and people that go visit these different areas, bars and clubs, find out and look at this individual. Is he or she a victim? How does she act? What is going on? What is the real truth behind it? But they are scared to come forward.
We have a few minutes left. The floor is yours. What issue do you need to bring out, not only for the people from Jim Wells County that are watching you on KRIS, KZTV, and also on Lopez Broadcasting and Simultaneous Line Radio? What do you want to bring out?
One of the messages that I like to let the community know, parents, grandparents, please come forward. Help your children. The vulnerability of drugs, the vulnerability of excessive drinking, partying, is out of control. If we don't do something about it right now, we don't try to get them help, there is help available. There's resources available. Communicate with them. Stay in touch with them. We've got to reunite the family unit again, and stay in touch. There's got to be days where you have a lunch or a dinner together. Put your phones away and let's talk. What is happening really at school? What is really happening in your life? How can you identify? What can I do to help you? Where has been the disconnection between you and me as a parent? What happened? Is there something really good? Is there something really bad happening to you? How come you're not coming forward? Because it's going to affect you for the rest of your life. Let's try to get it corrected right now as a young child. We need to have these children to become productive citizens in our communities. And if we don't do it with the help of parents, law enforcement is not going to do it, because they've got many other cases that they're working on. The key survival is going to be parents communicating with their children, because the vulnerability of drugs and excessive drinking and partying and everything that happens out there in different locations in our communities throughout the state of Texas, in this country, it's exploring and making sure that you're having a great time and not taking responsibility for your actions. So right now, young parents, the key is, let's communicate. Let's talk. Let's sit down and talk to our children. Let's stop the hiding. Let's stop the silence and really sit down and say, what is happening? What can I do to make it better for you? You're my son, you're my daughter, you're my grandkids, you're my children. What can I do to make it better? Is there something going on in school? Is there something going on with your friends? Is there something going on with your relatives? Because a lot of times they become victims, not from someone that's driving through our communities, victims within their own families. That's the reason we have to be prepared as parents and not be afraid to bring those issues up. Don't be afraid to talk about it. It is important that we talk about it. It is important that we identify it and get the correctional steps to make sure I'm going to make this kid a good kid. They're open. And if we don't do something about it now, it's going to be too late 15, 20 years down the road, because that is going to remain in their minds for many, many years. They should have gotten some help at some time or another.
Danny Bueno, your sheriff, Jim Wells County. We'll be proudly broadcasting this throughout the holidays. And if you want to more information, visit them. The great people. I want to take this opportunity to thank them. Jim Wells County, every single officer out there, whether they be with the city police or they're in the rural areas and in the county. Thank you all for putting lives on the line every day. This is Joe Flores signing off. Thank you all, and God bless.
You've been watching South Texas Now, featuring Joe A. Flores from the Flores Law Firm. For questions and comments, please call 361-887-8670 or visit floreslawfirm.com.